Paul call it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Mildred. Tonight we're with Eleanor Waha and her family. Just a reminder, September, become a member at the Cook County Historical Society. Go to cookcountyhistory.org. It's easy. You can get in for $20 annually for a membership, and we would love to have you. So tonight, Coffee with Mildred. Why do we call it Coffee with Mildred? Because it just made me think of when I was a kid and going and having coffee with all these people that my parents would drag me to, and I would be, kind of half paying attention, half not, and wish I had paid a lot more attention. And so now I'm recording it for everybody to see, and you can go back and look at these things. Feel free to chat as we're chatting this evening. You can use the chat function, ask a question. My son Kai is monitoring the questions this evening as my producer. So without further ado, I am going to introduce everyone, and I believe that we have you all right on the picture here. I'm going to back up. I think we can get it closer, which they're just going to love, I'm sure. There we go. All right, so I am going to start. That was like a big unveiling of Eleanor right there. I was blocking you out, and now there you are. So introduce yourself.
Jeff Linscoop.
Eleanor Waha. Mary Disha.
And then we have Dee Brazell is sitting off on the sidelines here she'll shoot in comments if needed. So first off, what is your connection to Eleanor, Chet?
She's my sister.
Okay. And Mary, you are?
Eleanor's daughter.
Okay. So Eleanor, how did you are, we'll say it up front, probably the most, know the most about genealogy in Cook County, dates for all kinds of families, but we're just going to talk about yours tonight. So how did your family come to be in Cook County?
Be in the what?
Be in Cook County.
Well, my father came over in 1907 from Norway, and my grandpa Berglund came, and his wife came from Sweden in 1881. Alma Hedstrom came from Sweden at the same time, and she's my
Aunt.
aunt.
Yeah.
Aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when your parents, were they married before they came over?
They were married up on Maple Hill in June of 1920, and there were six of us Sathries, and then my mother married Henry Linscoop, and there were five of them, and my mother was 104 when she died, I think.
Right.
Yeah, she made it a long time.
Oh,
I was talking in a different interview I did with the Quick Kids. How long did Bertha Tofty live? Do you remember?
No, she was quite old.
She was like 108.
Was she? I know Mrs.
Really?
Brandt was 106. Mrs. Carol Brandt.
Yeah, there was quite a few.
Yeah.
So going back to your parents, to your dad on the Sathry side, what did he do?
He was a school teacher when he came here. When he first came to the United States, he lived out in western Minnesota with some relatives. He went to Concordia College, and then he came here and was principal up at the Maple Hill School. And then he married my mother, and they lived in the school. And my brother Roland was born in that school too, in 1921. And our family only was together one time in our whole life, the whole family together, because Roland was gone by the time Chester and those arrived. And that was on the 20th of August in 1980 that we were together.
Wow. Yeah, because there was 11 kids.
11 kids.
Yeah. And your, you can say you don't want to talk about this, but your mom separated from your dad.
Yeah.
And so that must have been really hard back then.
It was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very unusual situation. And then how, what did she do to provide for she had six kids.
My father had a veteran's pension, so I think she got about $7 a month for each of us. And that took care of it. And then Henry came along and he worked for the Forest Service, and we lived off of his wages.
Yeah. I was reading your sister Irene wrote a book.
Yeah, a lot of misspelled words too. Oh, shame on me.
Yeah, that's all right. And she was talking about growing up and you had a small farm.
Yeah, we lived on the Devil's Track Road. When my father taught school after he taught school in Maple Hill, then we moved to Onamia. That's where Olive was born. And then the next year they moved to Clearwater, Minnesota, and that's where I was born. And in 1929, my father had some kind of disability or something. And so they moved then up to Maple Hill to where Grandpa Bergman's farm was on the Devil's Track Road. That's where all of us kids grew up there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So Chet, you were in the second pack of kids. There was the first six, then there was a span of 5 years, and then there was the next 5. And you were in the second pack, so you were on the younger end of things. And what was it like growing up for you on Maple Hill?
Well, she took care of me.
Yeah.
She was my babysitter. And it was my sister Carolyn, and then I came along, and then Roy, and then Lorraine, and then Russell. And it was, I had the farm. And so there was a lot of walking and things. We did a lot of stuff. And we used to go to Rindal. My sister Irene and I used to go to over to Rindal's and ski a lot. And going to school on Maple Hill, it was from first grade up to 4th grade in the one room, and then the other room was from the 5th to the 8th grade. And then Don Olson and I were the only ones all the way through until they consolidated the schools in the 6th grade. So.
And when you say consolidated the schools, was that into town, or was that going from Maple Hill East to Maple Hill West to?
It was all over the county. They went to one school district.
Oh, okay.
And they brought the kids in, and I remember standing on watching all the kids come, and Don Olson said to me, "Chet, it's not going to be the same." Because we went from 2 in the class to about 40.
Oh my!
And then it was that was the rest of the kids went to Grand Marais in the 7th grade, and it was the 6th grade up there.
You mentioned walking and reading Irene's book. It was like you had to walk 3 miles to get anywhere.
Yeah, I remember one time in the 4th grade, I decided that I was going to go home. So I walked home, and at the Four Corners there at the end of where the golf course starts, that was called the Four Corners. Anyway, I met my mother and dad going to town, and I wasn't too happy because I had to go with them and spend all day with them. And they asked me why. I said, well, I didn't have anything more to do that day because I was so far ahead. So that was at recess. And I know that Donald and my brother Roy, they said, where's Chester? Well, he went home. So at noon, they went home. And so next day we got back to school, and the teacher says, you like to walk, huh? So she kept us after school for a whole week. After the bus left, we had to walk home. And then after we got done walking home, the rest of that week, then she said to me, she said, was Sarah Tegland, and she says, since you're the instigator, you get an extra week.
Oh.
But I didn't. I said, no way. But then the next year we had Mrs. Schoberg. Ray Schoberg's mother was our teacher. I really liked her. She was the best one. And then there was Graham Ray.
So, Eleanor, did you go to Maple?
I went to school up in Maple Hill from first grade through eighth, and we used, and then when we went, in ninth grade we had to go to town, and we had a school bus that looked like we called it a cracker box, and Alfred Beckstrom was the driver, and when they were going to take a picture of the school bus drivers, he wouldn't stand by the bus because it was such a yeah.
That's pretty good.
And then we would, in the morning, we would get on the bus, and then the bus driver would leave us off. They'd pick up the kids in Andersonville, and then they would leave us off at the school, and then we would get into monkey business. And Mr. Kep used to sleep, and we used to go knock on his door because he had a room in the school, and we'd knock on the door and run. But anyway, then we were left there for about half an hour while they went to pick up the kids in the east end of town, east end of Maple Hill. And then we got to town.
And then when she came back, she left. She was a weather forecaster for Cook County in the state, I think.
No.
And then she had to go to Washington during the war, Second World War. Anyway, so then she went to Alaska, and then she came back and had a house right there across from the old Lutheran church. It was in there. Olga's.
You lived there?
Yeah. Not in the big house, but
No,
There was a
the
little
one
house right
behind.
behind it. I think there still is, isn't there?
Yeah, could be.
I think there's like a shed or something behind there, but there
I
was a
think
little
so.
house we lived in.
And I remember then when I got to Graham Ray, then I wanted to play sports, but I was so small. I wasn't very big. Anyway, so I became the manager, and so I would have to stay after school, and then I'd walk home every night, 5 miles.
Yeah.
And then when they had a game away from Graham Ray, then I would stay at Eleanor's. So I didn't.
So you didn't have to walk. That's
Yeah.
nice.
We walked all the time, and then we would, from our house, we would go. They had church over at the Maple Hill School in the Sunday afternoon. We would walk past the cemetery and walk over there, and then walk to town all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And
No
walk home.
bicycles?
No
Yeah.
bicycles?
And always stop at that. There was a little creek or something that came out partway up the hill, and we'd always stop and have a drink of water there.
Yeah, Irene said in her book that you would, for some fun in the winter time, sometimes you would slide down to town
Oh yes.
and then you'd walk back up.
My mother and I were on the sled, and we passed a logging truck going down.
That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah,
And,
but then you had to walk home.
and then we'd always go up to Chris Nelson's hill and slide.
Yeah.
And my mother was on the sled with me, and I was on the bottom, and she was on top. And all of us somehow were too close to us, so I had to go into the soft snow, and the sled stopped, and I kept on going, and my mother on top of me. Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And there weren't any trees in the field. We used to have to walk down to the corner to catch the bus, and there weren't any trees in the field there to protect us from the wind. Boy, was it windy sometimes walking home. And then Albert Melner used to drive a truck for the county, I think, and sometimes he would just happen to come along and he'd give us a ride and some candy.
Ah.
The wind used to blow across the
Oh.
fields, and then my dad was working for the county that one year, and he had to shovel snow, 17 trenches across the road, 5 feet deep or better, for the plow to bust through. And so those days were interesting.
Well, was there a lot more snow when you were younger than there is now?
Yeah, because I'm bigger. It's not as deep as my. No, I think the fields were always open, and so it drifted a lot. And Everson's had a terrible time plowed the school bus to go through. The banks would be higher than the bus, and so
But a lot of it because of the wind.
wind, yes,
Yeah, I don't think people realize just how many fields there were
yeah.
Yeah.
up on Maple Hill and maybe all over the county of places people trying to farm and
Yes.
And during any vacation, we would always we wouldn't have to. We would go over to Hedstrom's and do some of their spring cleaning or something and washing windows and having a good time over there.
And you grew up with the Eversons too.
Yeah, Gladys and Dorothy and Anna and Oscar.
And they were kind of on the other side of Maple Hill
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
So
But their relatives lived right across the road from us, so they would come up, be over there a lot.
yeah, I wish Anna and Gladys always talked about doing a cooking class that, you know, kids these days didn't know how to use all the food that they had, and they didn't know what it was to have to use every little bit of food that you got.
Everybody had gardens, and Uncle Alfred, he lived 7 miles from us, and picking potatoes, he would call up Mom, "What are the boys doing?" "Oh, nothing." "Well, we could use some help on Saturday." So we'd walk 7 miles and work in the field all day and then walk home.
Wow.
So everything was walking.
And you're little.
Yeah. And then when I was 12 years old, I was up at the Guthrie Lodge. Excuse me. I worked up there all summer. 12, 13, and 14, I think it was.
And every summer when Charlie Anderson was the ranger at West Bearskin, and then Mildred would go up there too and stay with her kids. So 1 week every summer, I would get to go up there and stay with Phyllis. And just a little change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talked about you going up to Gunflint when you were 12, 13, 14. I mean, that's not something that you did with your parents.
No, I stayed up there.
Yeah, on your own.
Yeah.
That's another thing that isn't really talked about a lot, I think, back then of Wayne talked about in the wintertime, kids from up the trail would board in town with
Right.
other families.
Yeah.
So they could go to school.
Well, we always had Bill Riley stay at our place all week. Then he'd go home on weekends.
But didn't they live up at Devil's Track?
Yeah, they lived up at Devil's Track. They didn't plow past us.
They didn't plow past you.
No. Then the bus only was turned around in our driveway.
And you're
Then
like,
they plowed up there, but the bus didn't go. So he would come and stay with us. I thought he was another brother.
Really?
Yeah.
and there also was a lot of families who would end up adopting kids from other families in the community, or a family couldn't take care of as many kids as they had. I know that happened on the Iron Range too with my family back in the day of, this family had too many mouths to feed, and so this one would adopt one of the kids, and kids were just kind of all over the place back then.
Well, I remember even when I was married, Dee, remember you don't remember that because you were too small, but it snowed heavily, and we lived on the south shore of Devil's Track, and Clem Greshik and Harvey Genetic and they came up with snowbills and got us out. I remember it started to snow and blow. Everything that landed on the north side came across it.
Yeah.
And I had the only thing I could see of my car was the antenna sticking up. And so I was out from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we got out on Sunday. We went down and stayed at Grandma Rita's, which is my house now.
So we had a question online from Dory Carlson. She wanted to know about your work with 4-H.
She wanted to know about 4-H, your work.
4-H.
Yeah.
I think I started being a leader like in 1958, maybe, I don't know. But I was between that and the county fair. I was in charge of the county fair for 45 years. I was secretary treasurer, and then we'd have to register all the things and then get everything on all these forms and then then when the judge came, we would have to put the amount of money and everything. Oh, that was a job. Now they have machines to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when did 4-H originate?
4-H.
Yeah.
We used to I think we met every month at least, but then every year we had demonstration day, and at every meeting we had somebody demonstrate how to do something. And Dory was really active in it, and Lavona too, and Mary, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then we had, what was it we called? They put on performances every year.
Oh,
Some kind,
and share the fun or something.
yeah, something like that. And Phyllis Anderson and I, Wayne's sister, we played a duet, and we got about halfway through it, and I suppose I'm the one that made a mistake. and I laughed and Phyllis cried. And no matter what, and then we would play that at different things at school too. After it never failed when we got to a certain part of that song. Oh, I didn't dare talk about it for years.
Our whole family, unfortunately, has that sense of humor, and we're not too good at not laughing.
That's a good thing to have. A good sense of humor.
Sometimes.
Oh, and all of had to. Then we had demonstration day once a year too, and Mrs. Graham, I think it was, that came up to judge that. But anyway, Olive was making a cake or something, and she just broke the egg into the batter, and the judge said, "Well, you shouldn't do that. You never know if the egg is fresh." And she said, "Yes, I do. We pick the eggs every day." There wasn't any chance of having a rotten egg in the.
Yeah, when you're right on top of things there. So who did 4-H before you in the county?
What?
Who did 4-H before you?
I don't. I suppose Elma Anderson and maybe Mildred was probably started too, but there wasn't much in 4-H then.
You really kind of were the one that.
Yeah, we just, and we always had a spring picnic over at Erickson's River there, down by Chester's.
Oh, on the Devil Track River at Chester's cabin.
Yeah, down there.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen was in 4-H.
Oh, Eileen Erickson.
Yeah, she was a year older than me, I think.
I think actually I just found out that she was the same age as you, but she started school a year early.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah, because all of her friends were a year older.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wayne just told me that.
It's in my birthday book, but I don't know where.
So let's talk about birthdays for a second. You were talking earlier about the three lines of communication.
Yeah.
What were they again? The telephone,
television, and tell Eleanor.
right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you're known for is birthdays, remembering everybody's birthday in the county. And I just found out that I found this out a couple of years ago. You told me. I always wondered, you have an excellent memory and can remember everything, but you also cheated by putting them on your kitchen cabinets.
Yes.
At your house. And I can only just picture both sides of your cabinet doors. This is the picture I have in my head, covered with everybody's birthdays. And
well, I usually write it on a piece of paper once a month.
And she does most of it by memory. And do you still keep a journal?
A what?
A journal?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so they say that the thing that people in my generation remember most is what they were doing the day that man walked on the moon and the day that President Kennedy was shot. And so I was telling Ma this, and I said, well, I remember when Kennedy was shot because I was in 7th or 8th grade and we all had to go to the gym until they dismissed school, and they had this little black and white TV and we watched that until they dismissed us. I said, I don't know. I have no idea what I would have been doing when man walked on the moon. So guess who said, well, I'll tell you what you were doing just a minute. And so she went to her journal because not only did she know exactly what I was doing, but she knew where to find it because she knew the date. And this happens all the time.
it really is a special gift.
And people still call me and want to know what was Mrs. Andrew Johnson's name, or what was his? Well, now that's a little hard to think of some of those. We called them Mrs. Johnson. We didn't call them by their first name.
Oh, right. Yeah, but an incredible mind. What was the other thing? Oh, speaking of writing, you also wrote for the newspaper.
Oh yeah, I used to for a while.
You make that sound like it wasn't very long.
And I still write at least 4 letters every Sunday. And one Monday morning when I was thought I was going to go down and mail my letters, I had forgotten to write letters.
Oh no.
That was before 1954 that I had been writing, and now it's gotten the worse. Mary makes the labels for me, so I don't have to.
That's a lot of letters that you've sent out.
Lots of money, lots of postage.
Lots of postage.
She keeps the post office busy.
Yeah, you got to support your daughter and her job.
Yeah.
And Chet, you got married, and I mean, you were my bus driver when I was growing up, and I think you retired right before you would have been my son's bus driver, which I was kind of mad at you about, but understandable. You drove bus, and you were also the county commissioner for a long time.
I was county commissioner for 20 years, and I drove bus 30, and then when I retired, I drove 5 more years after that. So then when I turned 70, I said, I'm not driving anymore. And the last years were really special too. And then I was called down. I'll tell you a little story that I was driving the West End bus coming back, and I looked at my watch and it was ahead of time, so I took the Cascade Lower Road, and I thought, well, what are you doing this road for? I said, I got to show you a flower that only grows here on the North Shore, and the other place is up in Alaska on the tundra. And are you sure? Yeah. So I got down there by the resort that's there, the Spruce Creek, and I stopped the bus. I said, you see those flowers? No, I don't see no flowers. Yeah, they're all those yellow flowers? Those are dandelions, Chet. You're crazy. And they said, dandelions. So then when I got to school, they all got off the bus. And dandelions. And then when they got back on the bus that day, they said, got any more wild flowers to show us? But anyway, that's some of the things that went on. Anyway, the last day of school, I was escorted all the way through town with the buses, and everybody went there. All the buses followed, and then they all went their way, and then they had a party at my place there. But that when they had graduation, that was called down in front of the class and given a flower, a rose, and then I got a standing ovation by all the people in the that were there that day, from all the parents.
You certainly were the best bus driver. You were the nicest. You didn't give as much candy as SK gave to all his kids on his bus, but
Dad gave gum. He had gum for all the kids.
Yeah. When I had the Grand Portage route, I
Is that when you started that?
Yeah, I got it.
And slumber parties.
So they had slumber parties at my place. They all came to me. I said, I'd asked the kids on the bus, what's for supper? I don't know. I said, well, you had that last night. They kept going, and then they finally said, what are you having? Oh, I'm having spaghetti and meatballs, or I'm having hamburger and French fries, and then or pizza. And pretty soon, 6 girls came to me and said, we're going to come to your house and stay. I said, what? I never wanted to go to my house, my bus driver. Oh, yeah, we're going to stay at your place. And I says, why? Well, we want to come to your house. So I said, well, then 8 girls came. I think it was 8 or 10 or that. Anyway, I said, okay. Then I went to check with the superintendent, and he said, just be careful. And so they brought sleeping bags, and then I had Dee and Stacy helping out, and so they were lined up from the back of the house all the way to the front, and then it was Easter
Easter,
cards
yeah.
that first year, and then we had a big snowbank, so we played out there, and they pushed me off that hill, and then the next year they wanted to do it again. It was Mother's Day, and so they could play more outside and stuff like that. And then they made Mother Day cards, and I got the nicest card from April Day. She said, "You're not a mother, but you're the same to me."
Aww.
So I wrote a story about it. I got a book on my driving.
So what was it like, the first day of driving bus versus the last day?
Eleanor got me started. I was working in my body shop, and the phone rang, and here was her, and she says they need bus drivers. I said, how am I going to do that when I got a body shop? Oh, you can work around it. So I went. Lee Creech was there, and I went over there, and he talked, and I got it, and then pretty soon I took the test, and then I had to go to Two Harbors to take I think it was the test. It's the driving test, and they did it in the car. They didn't have a bus, so they don't do that anymore. You have to have a bus. So that's a good thing. Anyway, I got there, and then I started the Maple Hill route, and I used to dress up with costumes during Christmas. I dressed Santa Claus and all that, and then during Halloween, I would dress up, and I got pictures. And you can ask your husband about this. I stopped to pick him up, and I had a fake beard, and I had my cover on, and I said, "Brent, do you want some candy? Keep your old candy." He thought it was a hippie driving the bus, and he wasn't going to. And he went to the back of the bus, and he was spouting out back there, and and I heard him talk. Brent, are you scared? No, I'm mad. I'm mad. And anyway, they finally talked him in, and he came up. He said, "Chet, can I have some candy?" So,
he wasn't going to take any candy from any hippie.
No. So I got pictures of that. The newspaper took a picture of me driving when I got to the school. So I got 3 albums full of cards from parents and from kids. So then I wrote a story, and Dee put it together for me.
We just haven't made it into a book yet.
No.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Well, I can take it up to the top of the hill here. Northern Wilds, I guess they do them.
Oh.
So I was going to do that, and then something happened, but anyway, I had really a good time with the kids.
Yeah.
Then I drove there, and then the superintendent came to me because Jim Doherty quit or he resigned. He was there, and he came to me. He said, "Ted, I want you to take the Grand Portage Road." I said, "Oh, I'm too young to retire." And he said, because Jim was having a hard time at the time, he was writing him up and doing that stuff. And so I was sitting there. He said, "Well, I'll give it back to you. I'll give you the route back if you don't like it." And finally, I had cut seats and spitting on the floor, and I said, I'm going to work one day, and I got up there and I said, "Lord, I can't do this anymore." And so I He must have said, okay. So I got up to Grand Portage and they all got on the bus and I said, tomorrow we're going to bring knives to school. Knives? Yeah, I said, we're going to have knives and we're going to go to that witch tree you like so well and we're going to cut the living daylights out of it. And then we're going to take all the garbage that you got on the floor here and we're going to throw it all over down there. And I said, how would your parents like that? They wouldn't. I said, you bet they wouldn't. And and they don't like what you're doing to this bus, so it'll stop today. So we got to school and they all jumped. I said, sit down. I dismiss you seat by seat. And if I find one cut seat, you pay for it. Well, that's the way it's going to be. It doesn't have to be, I said. It's up to you. So I got them dismissed anyway. And it went on for a long time. They were fine. And one, I found a cut seat. And I said, there's a cut seat back there. I said, I want to know about, this is Monday. By Friday, I want to know who it is. And if it is, you don't, you get assigned seats. And there was Aaron. I don't remember his last name though. But anyway, it's Friday. I said, I haven't heard anything yet. Who cut that seat? So Monday morning, you get assigned seats. And pretty soon I heard them all talking back there. And he came up and he said, Ken, I got something to tell you. I said, okay, Aaron, what? He said, I'm the one that cut that seat. Oh, he said, I was scared to death. I said, you should be. And he said, what's going to happen? I said, I'm going to take you out of school and you and I are going to repair that seat and nothing more will be said. And he said, is that it? I said, that's it. He gave me a great big hug and the other kids in the back, Chad, he's buttering up to you. He's buttering up to you. And I saw him down at SA after I retired. And he was coming back from, and he had to give me a hug.
Aw.
Yeah. So, I mean, because those are the same kids that stayed overnight at my place, you know?
Mhm.
And so I had a good time with that. And then when Kruger and I was at the West End, he's retiring, and he said, take this route. He said, and it paid $1,000 more a year at my insurance because I had more things than. And I said, okay, so I was going to take it. And three grandparents from Grand Portage came to me and said, if you stay, I'll give you $1,000. I said, I can't do that. That's not right. So then I had that route until I retired. But I had.
Everybody, you were the best bus driver. I told you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it was 35 years of fun. Right? One time in bed, I said, I started to hum. And Sherry said, what are you doing? I said, I'm humming to bring back my spirit. What are you talking about? She said. I said, you know, in the Reader's Digest, there was a story about the Navajo always hum before they got out of bed. So to bring back their spirit. And then she said, hum to yourself. I said, well, that'd be great. I go, and I said, how is the spirit ever going to hear me? Wow, they didn't go hum. I said, well, I don't know any Navajo. I could say, hi, yi, 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 hi, yi, 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 or hum. She said, get out of here. Well, anyway, one morning, I got up. It went on for a month, this stuff. So I got up, forgot all about, and I started down out of the driveway, and I said, I forgot to hum. So I run back in the house, took off all my clothes, jumped back in bed. She said, what's the matter? Isn't there at school? I said, yeah. She said, there's a snow day or something? No, I said, I forgot to hum. She says, get out of here, get out of here. She says, you can catch it on the way to Grand Portage. So even there at the house.
Yeah. Speaking of funny stories, the Sathler brothers were notorious for hijinks and monkey business. Did either of you ever get caught by by Lyle and
Dale's.
yeah, Lyle and Dale's Shenanigans.
No, I didn't. I don't remember.
Lyle used to always, he knew we were afraid of snakes. So he had a fake one and he would stick it in the flower garden. So I think we chopped it up in the end.
What?
Or else they put it someplace else.
But that was all did they mostly just prank each other then?
Yeah, they were monkey business. We moved up to that, up the house, and in June of 1929 from Clearwater, and in October when the house burned, well, then we moved over to Hedstrom's and stayed. But they must have they moved Hedstrom Summer Kitchen over to where the house is now, and then Grandpa Berglund and somebody else added on the kitchen part, and then later somebody by the name of Valentine added on the sun porch. So, and then in the paper, about a month or so ago, it said that 40 chickens were stolen from the Alfred Sathry farm. And then I never heard that story before. So then I figured that Hedstrom took the cows and stuff and had them over in Hedstrom's, that when they lived up above the cemetery there. They had a big barn there. The cows were up there, but the chickens, they had to leave over in a little shed over on there and go over and feed them and gather the eggs every day. So, but my mother never mentioned anything about, and I thought, how in the world could anybody steal 40 chickens without, and here, the house was gone then, so there wasn't anybody living there.
How did you end up in Alaska?
I went up there to work for the Weather Bureau,
Okay.
and I was there 6 years.
How did you get that job?
I went to Weather Bureau. Well, I worked it when I got out of school with it here, but then I used to babysit and house clean and can you imagine? and then I worked down Humphreys for about a couple of years. We developed pictures, and then I was a clerk there too. And then Henry Rindall told me there was somebody looking for somebody to go to Weather Bureau school over in Washington, D.C. So I went, no, I was down in Chicago. And then, then after 3 months training, I think, then I came back and worked at the Weather Bureau in Grand Marais. That opened up then. Then I went to Chicago and worked down there, that airport. Then there was an opening up in Alaska. So I went up there.
So where was the Weather Bureau in Grand Marais?
It was where
SOB.
where Como is right
Yeah.
now. Is that where
Well, there was the SOBs, wasn't it? That were in that
at that?
Shoals old place.
No, it was at Shoals first,
Yeah.
second, but it was where Como
Oh, it moved over
was
there.
there first.
So,
And then I came back here and started working in the school kitchen. Well, I worked out Arrowhead for a couple of months.
You remember her as a
Too, but then Mildred and Ruby Cartier had the Tony's what? Hamburger shop. And so they needed help there. So I went there, and Hazel took care of Pat and Mary.
Hazel McClanahan?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
so when did you start a family in all of this?
Well, Pat and Mary were born up in Alaska, and then I married Art here in 1954.
Okay. And how old were Pat and Mary when you did that?
Pat was born in 47, and Mary in 49.
49.
Yeah,
So I was 5 and Pat was 7.
yeah.
So where did you go to school then?
We Grammar.
Yeah.
And it was all in town at that point?
Yeah, it was. Grade school was where Mom lives now, on that lot.
Yep, the Harbor View Apartments.
To 6th grade, and then I think maybe my class was one of the first kindergarten classes. Could be, maybe, I don't know. And then in 7th grade we went up to where the high school is now.
Okay.
And I think when I was in 7th grade, they were adding on the upper hallway, which is where the shop was and
Mm-hmm.
business typing. Can't remember what else was on. Science was on that level, on that.
Yep, the upper hallway.
I kind of think Clyde Wishkup and Glenn Dahl maybe were the bricklayers. There was like a courtyard in between, and we'd watch them lay bricks all day while we were in class. But school there was a homeroom then, so the kids in grade school, we were separated into two kindergarten classes, 2 first, 2 second, on the way up. And then when we got to high school, then it was
The whole county.
the whole county, because by that time the Hoagland school had closed and the Grand Portage kids came in 7th grade and the Tofty kids came in. I don't know that the Tofty kids, well, they must have had an elementary school. I don't know.
Yeah, they had.
I suppose.
Did they have a Birch Grove school for the elementary kids like they
I
did
can't.
when I
No,
was going to
that was
school?
built later.
I think it was built later.
Do you know, Barb? You're from Tofty.
I went there.
And then I went to work after Tony's. They closed in the winters, so then I went over to Arrowhead. They had a cafe there, worked there part-time, and then I got started at the school for 27 years. And I still get a letter from a boy in Barnum thanking me for the extra potatoes I usually get. Yeah, and Mike Foster, when he came through the lunch line one day, he didn't want instant potatoes. And he asked me, "Are these instant potatoes?" And I said, "Absolutely not." It took more than an instant to get them. And he ate them.
Oh, for cute.
Lots of stories.
Those are the days.
Memories.
Mm-hmm. Very good memories. Well, I want to thank you. Thank you for doing this interview. And I think, is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have asked? No?
I don't think so. Mary might have something.
No, I'm fine. I'm just fine.
Well, thank you for doing the interview this evening. And I'm sure that we'll come back when I have more questions.
Did you ever hear the recording, the record that I made? They left a recording machine.
Oh, I didn't hear it, but I gave it to Carrie.
It probably hasn't been
Yeah.
listened to, but I tried to tell them early history and who lived where and
Oh, maybe we'll have to add that to this. Thank you for joining us this evening. Next week, Tuesday night, 7:00 again, I will be live with the Spry family. And then the week after that, I will be back at Wayne's, and we're going to go we made it to 8th grade on our very first interview on the pilot test run. And so we're going to go from 8th grade on and see what other stories he has to share. So join us again. Again, remember to become a member in September of the Cook County Historical Society. Go to cookcountyhistory.org and click join us. And you can become a member, a sustaining member. We really would appreciate all your help in joining this wonderful organization. Have a good night.
it's nice you've got a good helper